This here is a healthy Streptocarpus. If you look at the leaves, they're nice and stiff, they're turgid, they're pointing out from the plant. Younger leaves are growing up, and as they get older, they curve over. Now this plant does have a few brown spots on here. That's the sun, and that's my fault. I took it out and put it in our sunroom and just gave it a bit too much sun early in the summer, but it's still doing fine. The new leaves are perfect, and it's been flowering like crazy. It's now the middle of October, and this plant has been flowering since last January and shows no sign of stopping. What a great house plant. Here's a strep that's in terrible shape. It's pretty much finished. I think I can still revive it, but we'll see. This one's touch and go. So what causes crown rot? Well, the rot itself is caused by a fungal infection, but that's not what causes it. The real cause of this problem is overwatering. If you come along and water this when the soil is still wet, you're giving too much water to the crown of this plant. The roots are too wet, the crown is too wet, and that's when we get an infection and you get rot. It's the watering that causes the problem. So how do you prevent this problem? It's really simple. Streps are different than most other houseplants. They don't like to be overwatered. So when you come along in the morning to see if your plant needs water, touch the soil. If you feel moisture at the top of the soil, don't water. If you have any doubts about watering, don't. Wait a couple days. I've left these guys dry for several days and they just look fine. It's as if I've been taking care of them. They like to be on the dry side. You'll never harm these by letting them go dry, but you'll kill them with too much love and too much water. I saw signs of crown rot on this plant about 3 to 4 weeks ago. The first symptoms are these limp leaves. They get more and more limp, and then they pull out. As soon as you see limp leaves, the first thing to do is let it dry out. And from then on, give it very little water. And that's what I did with this plant. And you can see these old leaves are still limp and they're not going to come back. But the newer leaves are good and strong and stiff. And so this plant will recover. I have no doubts about it. So now with this plant, I'm extra careful with the watering. I only water if it's really dry. Now here's a strep that's in even worse condition. Again, the leaves are droopy. The first sign of crown rot is droopy leaves. Then they get softer and softer, and after a little while you come along and you tug these leaves and they just come right out. And if you look at the base of these leaves, you'll find it's all mushy. This part here has rotted. Right where the leaf joins the crown of the plant, it's rotted, and that's what's destroying this plant. If they come off like this, you might as well throw them away. This plant can still be saved, and I'll explain how in a few minutes. But first, let's have a closer look at what's going on under the soil. I'd like to have a closer look at this plant. I'm going to take it out of the soil and let's have a look at the root system. So I don't know how much of this you'll be able to see, but there are some good looking roots here. I was looking for rotten roots and some of them do seem to have rotted off, but there are some good ones here. The stems that are left seem to be fairly strong down here. There's no mushiness. That's a good sign. And one of these stems, this one here, is actually making a number of new roots off the side here. I'm quite confident that if you take this and plant it up, it'll grow just fine. The key here is to keep it dry, and this will survive. I know it doesn't look like much now, and it's going to take a while to come back, but this plant will recover. If your plant is as far gone as this one, let it dry out. Now it's completely counterintuitive. You see these limp leaves. Limp leaves mean it's not getting enough water. You feel you gotta water. But what you really have to do is let it dry out quite well. Then give it small amounts of water after that, but keep it on the dry side. there's a very good chance that this plant will revive. You'll make new leaves out of the crown here and start growing again. Now, another thing you can do is to take out some insurance in case your plant does get crown rot. And the way you do that is you cut off some of these leaves and you propagate them. You make more baby plants. That's very easy to do with streps, and I've made a separate video to show you how to do that. And it's in my complete playlist on streps that tell you everything you need to know about growing Streptocarpus. And I'll put a link to that video at the end of this one. If you don't overwater these plants, they're very easy to take care of. And how many houseplants do you know that flower 12 months out of the year? Everybody should be growing these plants.